Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So in this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto hybrid of dragon and devil, and joined Teen Titan. This is part 1 and subscribe and like for more, let's get in the video. Quick footsteps ran across a rocky field and were the only sound that could be heard for miles. They carefully and gracefully jumped over large boulders and flew through the air with elegance, not stopping once for a breather. Running across the rocky surface was a woman who looked to be in her teens with black hair that went down past her lower back. She had pale skin and was wearing a dress like a gothic Lolita. It was black in color with frills on each side and a pink bow just below her collarbone, while on her head was a pink frilly headband. Everything about her appearance was normal except that she had pointed ears and her canine teeth were a little longer than they normally were. The woman's name was Ophis, the infinite dragon god who was in a human form. Unlike others of her species and of her kind, she was a humanoid dragon, not the usual giant-scaled beasts with razor-sharp claws, but instead taking the form of a human. Though she was a dragon that had the uncanny ability to change her appearance, her age and even her gender, though she preferred to stay as a woman since it what she felt most comfortable is and it felt right being a female. It was what also earned her the name the Ouroboros dragon. She was currently making quick haste through the void, a world that was in between the three dimensions Earth, Heaven and the underworld. The void was an endless space that was shrouded in different colors and looked like a giant endless kaleidoscope. It was the place where Ophis was created and where she had spent the majority of her life, since Ophis greatly enjoyed the silence and all things quiet. Though when she left the void for a short while, she returned to find there was a new tenant in her home that made her extremely unhappy. That person was actually who she was rushing to see. Slowly she stopped running and stopped right at the edge of a cliff that overlooked a drop that looked endless and had no bottom to it. If someone fell down this drop, they most likely would never stop falling. Unless they had wings or could fly, then anyone who fell would be falling for the rest of their life. She scanned the area, her eyes flickering all over the area that she could see, but scowled when the person she was looking for was nowhere in sight. Frustrated, she took a deep breath before she shouted as loud as she could. "Great Red Baka Dragon, come here now and stop fooling around like some child." Silence at first was all that was heard through the void for the next few minutes as Ophis waited with bated breath, for once actually hoping that the person she had just shouted for would turn up. After all, he did have a knack for turning up when she did not want him. After another moment, she was not let down when a loud roar suddenly ripped through the air that would have deafened any person within range or with sensitive hearing. But Ophis showed no fear and stood her ground. Instead, she stayed calm and looked towards the area where the roar had come from. When she did, the loud flapping sound of wings was heard and they sounded like thunderstorms as they beat again the air. It was not long before a massive body descended towards her and where she stood. The being was a massive dragon, easily around 100 meters in length from snout to tail. It had red scales that shined in the light with a whitish-brown underbelly. The dragon's eyes were the gold in color with black reptile slits for pupils and had teeth that were pearl white and were as sharp as teeth could possibly be. The wings on its back were enormous, almost the same size as its body, which only made it look more terrifying. Then on the front of its snout was a giant sharp red horn as well as a small point on its chin. "Hello, Great Red," she said, breathing as she breathed as calmly as she could given the circumstances of her visit. Great Red, the strongest dragon and most powerful creature currently in existence, looked down at the humanoid dragon with curious eyes. Great Red, who was also known as the Apocalypse Dragon, the true Red Dragon Emperor God, True Dragon, and the Dragon of Dragons, wondered what Ophis was up to, since normally she was shouting insults at him to get out of her home and to give her the silence back. "Ophis, you seem a little different than normal. Not got those panties of yours in a wad for once?" he said, making her a little red and glare up at him. "Shut up, Baka Dragon," she sniffed as she quickly wiped away a tear from going down her face, now making Great Red even more curious than before. "Then why are you speaking to me so civilly, and why are you tearing up?" he asked, as it was then that his eyes traveled down to her arms and noticed a small bundle that was wrapped in a dark blue blanket. He could just about see a little hand poking out of it that Ophis currently had wrapped in her own and was caressing it gently. "What is that?" he asked, looking toward the bundle, making Ophis show him what she was carrying. What he saw was a newborn child that was currently sleeping with tufts of black hair on its head, just like Ophis currently had. Though he noticed the baby was very pale, far too pale than what a normal child should look like. "This is my son that I gave birth to a few hours ago," she said, surprising Great Red as the giant dragon's brows shot up in surprise. "Your child? What poor schmuck had a kid with you? He asked, which only further infuriated Ophis. But instead of answering, she let it slide for once, since she had important matters to discuss with the mighty dragon. He has no father, just me, his mother. I have the ability to reproduce on my own, and I felt that the time was right for me to have a child of my own. Since I can switch between the two genders, it gives me the ability of parthenogenesis. Though dragons are still born to this day, they are just normal dragons, not godlike dragons like you or I, or even the extremely powerful ones like the heavenly dragons and dragon kings. I felt it was time for a new great dragon to rise, she said tenderly as she stroked the baby's cheek. And so he is like you then? A humanoid dragon that can shape-shift? No, he is like me in the sense that he is a humanoid dragon-like, but he will not have the ability to shape-shift, which is a pity. Though when he is older, he may be able to turn into a full lizard dragon form, and I have no doubt he will have some form of magic and special powers that will make him very formidable. Great Red listened and nodded to the unusually calm Ophis. Thought something did plague his mind about this visit. So why are you here? You hate my guts, and you would not be here without good reason. I do hate your guts and still want you out of my home, but I need your help, she said quietly as she gave him a better look at the small baby. The baby's breathing was very shallow and his skin looked like it was getting paler and paler by the second. He was shaking a little and little wrinkles kept forming on his tiny face as if the baby was in some kind of pain. His body is breaking apart, Ophis said, getting the true dragon's attention again. When he was born he had a massive influx of power. He is much stronger than others his age, and it caught me off guard. His power levels are enormous for a child, especially for a newborn. He makes newborn devils look very insignificant in comparison. But that's the problem. His body cannot handle the massive power that he contains, and it's breaking his body apart. Hey Euro, she said before stopping and trying to block out a choked sob, not wanting to look weak in the eyes of her rival. He is going to die if he does not get help. So why come to me? Great Red asked again, wanting to know where she was going with this. Your flesh, she said, looking him all over. Your flesh has powerful properties to it. It can create new bodies and restore old ones. Therefore I think it can also be used to reinforce current bodies. By absorbing a portion of your flesh into my son, it will help stabilize his body, and his body will begin to quickly adjust to the power influx and continue to adapt as her gets stronger through the years. Since you are both dragons, it should take almost immediately. So let me get this straight. You want me, the dragon you hate the most in the world and have said whose neck you said you will have one day, to give a portion of my flesh to your son because he is dying hours after his birth. Did I get that right? He asked as Ophis looked away while clutching her son close to her chest. Great Red looked her over and the child. The child he knew would most likely not last the end of the day, and if Ophis had any other methods to save him, then she would have taken it. The fact that she was here meant she really was left with no other choice, even if it meant going to the person she hated most in the world. The great dragon sighed and rolled its eyes before sticking out its left leg. Take the necessary amount. Ophis looked up from her son slightly shocked and surprised. He guessed she had not actually thought that he would help her. Why? The great dragon shrugged. I see no reason why not. Besides, the child has not had a chance at life. It would be unfair for him to be taken away by death only hours after being given life. Plus, with him around, it means you won't be bothering me as much, he said, grinning his sharp teeth, at which made her pout and shake her right fist at the dragon. I knew it. You have some agenda, you baka dragon. I should have known, she declared before she quickly calmed herself. She looked down at her child for a few moments before looking back up at Great Red. I will only take off the necessary amount. After that I will leave, she said calmly and quietly as Great Red nodded. She walked up to the leg that Great Red had outstretched and looked back and forth between the dragon's head and the arm. Everything will be okay in a moment, my sweet, she said to the small child. She extended her right arm and placed her hand on Great Red's skin. She concentrated and gripped it tight before she began to pull. The piece of flesh she had grasped began to glow red and pulsate the more she pulled. Would you hurry it up? It stings, he said, but Ophis just ignored him and focused on the task at hand with concentration and precision. The piece of flesh she was pulling on finally tore off Great Red's body and immediately began to glow red. She quickly wrapped the glowing piece of flesh around her son, almost like she was making a cocoon of sorts around him. The spot where the flesh had ripped from Great Red glowed red, and after a moment it dimmed down, revealing the wound had now healed and looked as if nothing had happened. She pressed her hands against the flesh-cocooned child and began muttering incantations under her breath, making the flesh glow brighter before it began to reduce in size and began to get absorbed into the child. The child never once woke up during the ritual, and his skin glowed a little as the flesh began to get absorbed into his little body. When it all went in, a big torrent of power shot around him. Neither Ophis or Great Red was affected by it, but now Great Red understood what Ophis had meant. I see what Ophis meant now. The child is powerful for one only hours old. He could reach mine and Ophis's level if he trains right. He thought as he continued to watch until eventually the glowing flesh had now completely absorbed into the child. Both dragons waited with bated breath as the child glowed a little and noticed his skin color was slowly beginning to get warmer and pinker. He was still slightly pale, but it was now the same tone as Ophis. Slowly the child opened his eyes to show sapphire blue eyes and saw a pair of warm eyes and a giant pair of curious gold eyes looking down at him. Doing the only thing a child his age could do, he shuffled around a little in his blanket and made gurgling noises. Ophis watched as her son wriggled around and smiled the biggest smile Great Red had ever seen her wear. She pulled her child in and hugged him close and placed kisses on his little cheeks and forehead. "So it was a success, I take it?" he asked as Ophis nodded. "He absorbed it perfectly. I can sense his power flow through his body at a much calmer rate now. His body can now adjust to it and will continue to adjust as he gets older. He will be quite the force to be reckoned with once he is of age. I trust you have ideas on how to train him." "I do, but since he absorbed some of your flesh, he will no doubt have a portion of your power in him now," Ophis said as Great Red nodded, since it was highly likely. "I may have to alter the training I had in mind for him. I was going to take care of most of it and have Tannen also help him since he is a powerful ally and friend." Great Red hummed before looking away and readied his wings. "I have done what you asked and now I will get back to my flying," he said. He also stood right up. "His name? You never told me his name." "I didn't, did I?" Ophis quietly said as he looked over her now healthy, happy baby. She debated whether to tell him or not, but figured since he did help save her baby, it was the least she could do. "Naruto. His name is Naruto. You're calling him Fishcake. Poor kid." "It's not Fishcake, Baka Red," she said, shouting at him comically, showing him the old Ophis was now back. "It means Maelstrom. It is a powerful name fitting a powerful future dragon." I guess that name will do. Though most will call him Fishcake," he said, making Ophis just glare at him in return. Then Great Red had a thought that made him grin. "Does this mean that since he has my DNA in him now that it makes me his dad? I always wanted to be a dad?" he said, grinning a toothy smile. All the while Ophis was now turning red and purple with rage and was shaking a little. Little Naruto, who was still awake, was gurgling at how angry his mother looked. "He is my son, not yours." "Well, that is debatable now. He has my blood in his veins now thanks to him absorbing my flesh. Therefore that kinda make me and the kid related in a way. I wonder what his first words would be. Papa or Mama?" he said, laughing before his wings began to flap and lifted him into the air. Ophis looked ready to rip the giant red dragon to pieces and was looking ready to go all crazy bitch on him. "Damn you, Baka Red," she shouted as Great Red flew away, all the while still laughing. When he was gone, Ophis calmed herself down and breathed in and out calmly before she looked down at her now healthy son, who was looking up at her with his big innocent blue eyes. Ophis smiled down at her son. "Now that Baka Red is gone, it's just me and you, Naru-chan. You are going to be a great dragon one day. That I know for sure," she said as she nuzzled her nose with his, making him gurgle again as Ophis slowly walked away with her son secured safely in her arms. 5 years later. "Mama, where are we going?" Lil 5-year-old Naruto asked as he held his mother's hand as they walked down an empty path through the underworld. Naruto was the size of an average 5-year-old child, with his black hair being very wild and untamed but kept short. He was wearing a dark blue long-sleeve shirt with black shorts and sneakers. "We are going to see an old friend of mine. He is a former Dragon King and he is going to help you learn how to fight and defend yourself as well as help you with your powers," Ophis said as she explained to her son. Ophis was in the same form she was in 5 years ago and the form had grown on her. She contemplated on keeping her current form as a permanent main form since it was the form her son recognized her as. "Oh, okay, Mama," he said happily as Naruto swung his arms, all the while keeping a big happy smile on his face. As they continued down their path, they eventually found themselves being led into a mountainous area. Naruto looked in awe at the big mountains, which made Ophis laugh into her hand at how easily entertained her son was. "Now where is he?" He should be around here somewhere since this is where he normally goes to train. Plus he was not at his territory, so this is the only other place he would be at. She closed her eyes and scanned the area before quickly smiling as she got a lock on the person she was looking for. Come Naruto-chan, I have found the person we are looking for. Ophis held her son's hand tightly before light engulfed them and teleported them away. They reappeared moments later on a giant cliff edge. When Naruto rubbed his eyes since the teleporting had made his eyes a little itchy, he widened them when he saw they were not alone anymore. On the side of the cliff was a giant purple dragon that was staring out at the surroundings, almost oblivious to the rest of the world. It was nowhere near as big as Great Red but was still very big. The purple dragon was around 50 meters long in length and about 15 meters in height. His wings lay proudly beside him and had a whitish-gray underbelly. His eyes did not have an iris, just a black slit for a pupil. As they got close, Naruto huddled behind his mother since he had never met this dragon before and did not know what it was like. Ophis coughed, which was heard by the purple dragon. When the dragon turned to look where the sound came from, he saw Ophis standing there looking at him and his eyes went wide in shock and in disbelief. Lady Ophis, he said quickly, standing up and giving a small bow to her. Hello Tannen, it has been some time, has it not? It has been many centuries. But where have you been? You just up and left and had many of the dragons looking for where you went. Many believed that you no longer existed. I simply went back to my home in the void. Though I am having a bit of trouble with a tenant that decided to move in, but I will get rid of him eventually. Ophis went on to explain to Tannen where she had been and what she had been doing as of late while Tannen did the same. Little Naruto found out that Tannen was a former member of the Dragon Kings and was resurrected as a devil since he apparently had an interest in the dragon apples which certain dragons had to eat in order to survive. Though he had devil blood running through him, he was still mainly a dragon and his form was still that of a dragon, but now he also had some powers and abilities that of a devil. As they spoke, Tannen noticed Naruto behind Ophis's legs and looked at the child curiously. Lady Ophis, who is this young one behind you? He smells like that of a dragon, he said as he took a quick sniff of Naruto, which made the boy hide himself behind his mother more. Ophis smiled as she patted his head and gently led him out from behind her and stood him just in front of her as she kept her hands on his shoulder. Tannen, I would like you to meet my son Naruto, she said and caused Tannen to look like he just had a heart attack. Son? You had a child? He said, stuttering, not believing what he just heard. Ophis nodded. Yes, he is a human-shaped dragon like I am, though he has the ability to transform into a full dragon form. He has, or at least will eventually have, all the basic power that all dragons have, such as flight and tough skin. He has also shown having the ability to breathe and control fire similar to you. Though I would not be surprised if he develops another element or elements. Another element? It is very rare for a dragon to have more than one element. But then again, with the dragon god as his mother, it should not be surprising, Tannen said, though inwardly he was still collecting his bearings since it was unheard of that one of the strongest entities in the universe has a child. Yes, though he will no doubt have more powers develop as he gets older due to having Baka Red's blood in his veins, she said, making Naruto frown up at his mom. Mama, Papa Red is not a Baka. He is really cool and he takes me flying all the time, he said innocently, though Ophis pouted. Naruto-chan, that stupid red dragon is not your papa. He may have helped save you and you may have some of his blood running through you, but he is not your father. It infuriated her to no end when Naruto began calling her rival Papa. She had asked him not to, but it was already too late. Naruto had taken a liking to Great Red and loved hanging out with the giant red dragon, and it seemed that it was a mutual feeling for Great Red, who had developed a soft spot for Ophis's son, which was odd given Red's usual bad boy attitude. Plus Great Red loved to rub it in her face any chance he got. Tannen meanwhile realized who it was they were talking about and felt as if his blood had just turned as cold as ice. He has a portion of the Great Red's power in him. He thought as he could sense a part of Great Red in the boy. A child of the dragon god who also has the blood of the true dragon running through him. The potential is enormous. Tannen knew now that this little boy in front of him was going to be someone great, someone extremely powerful, and someone that could change the balance in the world. As you have already figured out, the Great Red gave him a portion of his power and flesh due to circumstances that I will explain later. If trained and taught to use his powers and growing strength, he could easily become far more powerful than the Archangels, the Four Maos, the Dragon Kings, and even the two heavenly dragons. His power will be more of a match to mine and Great Red's, Ophis explained as Tannen nodded in this information. What is it you want me to do, Lady Ophis? He asked. Train him and teach him the ways of the dragon. When he is old enough, I want him to live in the human world and learn about the humans just like I did. Until then, I want you to train and teach him everything he needs to know and how to use his dragon powers so that he can protect himself and those he cares about. You are a former Dragon King as well as a top contender in those devil raiding games, even if you are semi-retired. That makes you as powerful as one of the Satan Lords. You will be a great mentor for my son, better than Baka Red. Tannen looked slightly gobsmacked at the request, but he quickly shook his head. Of course, Lady Ophis. It would be an honor to train the child of the dragon god. Ophis smiled at the purple dragon and ushered Naruto forward. Go on, Naruto, say hello. Naruto shifted in his spot a little before his quiet voice spoke up. Hello, Mr. Tannen. I'm Naruto, it's nice to meet you, he said and even gave a little bow. It is an honor to meet you as well, Naruto. There's no need to bow to me. I know, but Mama always said to bow to your elders, he said as both Tannen and Ophis smiled at the boy's politeness. You have raised a polite young man, Ophis. That I have. I am a very lucky dragon to have him, she said before she had a very serious look appear on her face. However, Tannen, if you are to train Naruto, I must have your word that you will tell no one else about Naruto's existence. I do not want the devils, fallen angels or the angels finding out about him yet. If they found out about him, they would try to convert him to their side or have him eliminated. I want him to be able to choose what he will do when he comes of age. If you tell anyone a euro, she said as she raised her power levels to gargantuan proportions that made shivers and sweat run down Tannen's body. You have my word as a dragon and former Dragon King that I will not tell anyone of his existence, he answered quickly, and thankfully Ophis lowered her power level back to normal and made Tannen breathe easily. Naruto was not affected since Ophis made sure to not get him caught in her aura or power. Then we have much to discuss, she said as she smiled innocently at the big purple dragon that left Tannen wondering what he had just let himself into, while Naruto just gazed at the two of them innocently before sneezing with bits of soot puffing out of his nose as he did. Walking down the busy streets, Naruto Uzumaki walked with his hands in his pockets as he had an easygoing and calm smile on his face as he watched as people all around him rushed to either go to work or to get to school. Naruto had grown into a strong young man as he stood at a respectable 6'3" with a lean yet muscular build meant for both physical strength and for speed. His hair had grown longer and had short bangs framing each side of his face, and his skin color had now darkened from being slightly pale to being lightly tanned. Since he was introduced to the former Dragon King Tannen 13 years ago, much had happened. His training with Tannen had taken up most of his time when he was younger, and he had spent most of his time up until he was 13 with the Purple Dragon. His mother Ophis had shifted her time between him and a group she had created which she had called the Chaos Brigade. Naruto knew the Chaos Brigade was set up to help her take down Great Red, but he was surprised when his mother told him it was full of people who were fallen angels, descendants of powerful past figures, stray devils, etc. He had never met any members of the Chaos Brigade himself, but he knew eventually he would. Though his mother said she had a few favorites from the Chaos Brigade, he had a feeling many of them were not in it to help rid of Great Red but instead to fulfill their own goals. Though his mother was the one that formed the group, he just had an uneasy feeling from them, and that something told him his mother was not seeing or was dismissing. When he was 13, his mother had told him he would be spending his time in the human world so that he could get the human experience that she had when she visited the human world all those centuries ago and still visited to this day. He had argued with her at first, but eventually he gave in. Since most needed a last name in the human world, he chose Uzumaki. When Ophis asked why, he just shrugged, saying Maelstrom Spiral sounded pretty cool. Since then he moved permanently to the human world, but since his mother taught him how to teleport, he could visit Tannen but not his mother. She really was too mysterious and odd most times, but Ophis told him that she would check on him from time to time, but her time was mostly taken with the Chaos Brigade and who knows what else. Though she visits the human world, she vowed not to directly interfere in it. The school he was attending was called Kuo Academy. Today was in fact his first day at said school, since he kept feeling himself drawn to it for unknown reasons. So he enlisted a transfer and Kuo became his new school. Kuo was formerly an all-girls private school, but recently it had turned co-ed and began allowing boys to being studying there. From what he read up about the place, many of its students did very well and went on to follow great career paths. That he actually liked, since he took its studies quite seriously since he was a smart person. He loved to read and to write, something he enjoyed since he was at a young age. He was even working on a story in his spare time since writing a book was something he had always wanted to do. His school uniform now consisted of a black blazer with white accents, a white, long-sleeved dress shirt with a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants, and brown dress shoes. This uniform is kind of uncomfortable. He thought as he pulled on the collar of his shirt. Though he was fine with dressing smartly when the occasion came, he preferred simple clothes which to him were simple shirts, jeans and boots. As he walked down the streets he noticed a few of the women that passed him by give him quite lustful looks and many were ogling his form. It was not long before he eventually found himself outside the gate of Kuo Academy. The academy was very nice and had an illustrious feel and look to it. It had cobbled paths and even had a water fountain in the center of the courtyard in the front of the school. There was a main building in the center of the campus which was the main faculty building with various smaller buildings around it provided for the large number of students it had. Pretty nice. Humans do make some nice stuff when they put their mind to it, he said before he walked in. As soon as he did it went mostly quiet as the other students noticed him walk in and wondered who he was. The boys were all thinking who the new pretty boy was and whether they should rough him up since he was the newbie at school. The girls however were the complete opposite and were happily voicing his opinion. Oh my god, who is that? He is such a hunk. Look at that body. Look at those arms. Do you think he had noticed me? Naruto played it cool and simply ignored them, though inside it made him feel a little nervous. He had not had much experience with girls other than his mother. At his other school he mostly kept to himself, never really making friends. He guessed his mother's trait of enjoying the quiet and being alone passed on to him in a way. When he went inside the main building to pick up his timetable, many of the girls had rushed to follow him since they wanted to find out who he was, what class he was in and most important whether they had a chance with him. He picked it up from the woman at the school office and was annoyed that even she was blushing and giving him a predator-like look. 3A, where is 3A? He muttered as he walked down the corridors as many other students began piling into their classroom. After another minute he found his room and walked in. The classroom was completely full with only one spare desk which no doubt was for him. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki, I presume. A man in his 30s said as he shook Naruto's hand. That's me. Sorry if I'm a bit late. Trying to find my way around here. The teacher Mr. Asama spoke to the class briefly. Everyone, I would like you to welcome Mr. Uzumaki, who has joined Kuo Academy today and will be with us for the rest of the year. It's nice to meet you all. I hope we get along. Naruto said, giving them all a small bow. Mr. Uzumaki, why don't you take your desk? It is just besides Miss Himejima, he said as Naruto nodded and walked towards his seat. When he sat down he looked to the girl whose name the teacher spoke and unknowingly blushed when he saw her. She was incredibly beautiful, easily one of the most beautiful girls he had ever seen. She was a buxom young woman with long black hair and violet eyes and creamy-colored skin. Her hair was being tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with two antennae sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. He then blushed a little more when she turned to look at him. Seeing his red face she laughed a little into her hand before extending to him. Hello, my name is Akeno Himejima. Welcome to Kuo Academy, she said politely. Getting over his redness he smiled at her in return and shook her hand, which was very smooth. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, it's nice to meet you, Akeno-san. As they shook hands, Naruto suddenly felt her energy and recognized that it was not one of a normal human. Though he had never met a devil before, that was the feeling he got from her when he shook her hand. She even felt a little like a fallen angel, which he also had never met before. A devil going to this school, huh? Guess I cannot complain. This could be rather interesting. He thought before he grinned a little and focused on the teacher at the front of the class. Later on, Naruto sat quietly underneath one of the trees in the school courtyard as he ate his packed lunch he made himself earlier that morning. Since he lived on his own, cooking was one thing he quickly took upon himself to learn and found he was actually pretty good at it. When his mother visited him she complimented his cooking, and even Tannen, on the rare occasion that the dragon visits him in his miniature form, said his cooking skills were very good. He was sitting on his own since one, he was the new and had no friends at the time being, and second was to get away from the crazy horde of girls that kept following him round the school. The school seems pretty nice so far. Though the girls here are fucking insane. I have only been here a day and they are already throwing themselves at me. I'm not sure whether I should feel blessed or slightly worried for my safety. Underscore. As he sat eating his lunch, he heard the sounds of giggling coming from behind one of the bushes outside the building that held the kendo club. Getting up, he went to investigate and found 3 boys peeking through the window, each giggling rather perversely and were wiping away small trails of blood from their noses. When he went to see what they were looking at, he saw that through the window were the girls of the kendo club all getting changed, half of which were now only in their bras and panties. His eyes narrowed towards the boys. If there was one thing he hated, it was perverts. A growl ripped from his throat, causing the 3 boys to freeze in their spots. When the trio turned around, they suddenly felt their collars being grabbed and found them being lifted off the ground and being pinned against the wall. The girls from the kendo club heard the slam and went to investigate. They found Naruto pinning the 3 boys against the wall, all 3 with a scared look on their faces. So you 3 thought it would be okay to watch the lovely girls of the kendo club get changed, did you? Do the 3 of you have an ounce of respect for women, since clearly your lust seems to be your main way of thinking? He growled out. As he said that, the kendo girls got angry looks on their faces and went inside to grab their kendo sticks. Naruto demanded the trio to tell him their names, which they quickly complied to. The trio were Issei Hyodo, Matsuda and Motohama. So you 3 are the perverted trio of Kuo. Believe it or not, I heard about you 3 from my old school and how many girls there wanted to beat you into the ground. Therefore I will warn you 3 right now, he said as his pupils narrowed to match reptile-like slits. It freaked all 3 of them out and made them shake in fear. If I find you peeping again, I will end you. I will beat the 3 of you so bad no one will ever be able to recognize you. Understand? He said as the 3 quickly nodded their heads furiously. Good, he said as he dropped them to the ground but kept a hold of them. Now, though I would love to be the one to give you punishment, I feel it would best for the girls to be the one to give you your just desserts, he said as the girls all came out with their kendo sticks and glared towards the perverted trio. Ladies, he said as he gave them a smile which made them all blush, they are all you're to do with. Thank you, Naruto-kun. They all chorused out before they got an evil glint in their eyes as Naruto pushed the 3 boys towards them as the yelps of pain began to echo through the school. Though no one had any sympathy for the 3 boys since they were getting what they deserved. Troublesome, Naruto said as he took his spot back under the tree and continued with his lunch. As he ate his lunch, 2 set-off eyes stared down at him from one of the roofs of the buildings. One was the gaze of Akeno Himejima, which had a curious look with even a bit of lust in them. Watching Naruto threaten the 3 boys had actually made her heart flutter. The other pair of eyes belonged to her best friend Rias Gremory. Like Akeno, she was a buxom young woman with a light skin tone and blue-green eyes. Her most distinctive feature is her long, crimson-red hair that reaches down to her thighs, with a single hair sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She currently had her head leaning gently on her palm as she watched Naruto put the perverted trio in their place. Fu my, he was certainly vicious to the 3 perverts, Akeno said as she laughed in her hand. He was, which was quite humorous to watch, though he was very physically strong as well. He was holding 3 teenage boys by their collar and had them lifted off the ground with very little effort. He even cracked the wall a little. You think Naruto-kun is not human then? That he is some kind of supernatural creature? I think so, since his physical strength is much greater than a normal boy his age, even with Hisayuro. Physical structure, she said, blushing a tad red as Akeno laughed at her blush. Plus he does not feel human when I got a read on him. Does someone have a crush on Naruto-kun? If you do, then get in line because I saw him first, Akeno said as she smiled innocently at Rias. Rias smirked at her friend but went back to looking at Naruto. Perhaps I can add him to my plans, she said haughtily as she continued to watch him for the rest of lunch while Akeno ogled him. Later that day, Naruto casually made his way home with his bag slung over his right shoulder while he read The Hobbit. With his love for books, adventure stories were always his favorite since they played with one's imagination the most and it brought out his inner child. Since he was writing a book of his own about a ninja who goes on adventures and tries to prove himself to the world, other adventure stories were big influences on him and helped him mold the story. It was late afternoon and most were returning to their homes by now, with parents welcoming their children home from school or wives welcoming their husbands from long days at work. As he continued to walk, the streets began to empty. Though there was no one around that he could see, he could sense 2 people following after him. They were following him by the rooftops and had been for the last half an hour. It was also the same two energy signatures that he felt watching him back during lunch at school. Seeing that no one from any direction was around, he stopped and put his book away into his pocket. You can come out now. I know you have been following me since we left school. There is no point hiding. It did not happen immediately, but he stood there patiently looking in front of him. Then from the side and out of the shadows, his eyebrows rose up in surprise when he saw Akano and another girl from his class who he knew was called Rias stepped out. You knew we were following you? She asked. I did, though I did not know who other than Akano-chan here, since I recognized her as a devil when we shook hands this morning. Am I right in thinking you are also a devil, Rias-san? She nodded. I am Rias Gremory, heiress to the Gremory family. Naruto whistled in amazement. Wow, I have never met such a high-class devil before. I have read about the Gremory family and that your family is a very noble devil family. You know, I think today is actually the first time I have ever met a devil, he said, surprising the two of them. In fact, I have never met an angel or a fallen angel either. So he is not of the three main factions then. Rias and Akano thought. You have never met a devil before? Rias asked, genuinely surprised. Well, not a full devil like yourself. The only other devil I have met is the dragon-devil hybrid Tanin, the meteor dragon. Saying Tanin's name, both Rias and Akino's eyes widened to great proportions when they heard the dragon's name. Heck, anyone in the underworld knew that name, and many younger devils looked up to it since Tanin was a greatly respected member of the underworld as well as extremely powerful. You know Tanin? Rias asked. How? Of course, he is my teacher and the one who taught me how to fight, he said, and once again Rias and Akano were thrown back. Trained by a warrior such as Tanin is such an honor. Who is he? If he is trained by Tanin, then he must be powerful. And why is he here in the human world? Rias thought, with hundreds of questions swarming around in her head. What are you? Akano asked in wonder, now more curious than ever before. Rias was no better.
I can tell you, but not here out in the open. If you want to know more about me, then you can come home with me if you like. It's only another 10 minutes from here. If not, then you will have to wait another time, he said as he turned around and began walking away.
Bucko, what do we do? Rias had a contemplative look on her face as she watched Naruto walk away from them. He didn't sound like he would harm them, and he did not come off as evil or want to hurt them in any way. He sounded more like he would tell them in the open if he could, but was just unable to. Biting her lip and making her decision, she ran after Naruto, to which Akano also quickly followed and joined him by walking at his side. Rias on his right and Akano on his left. Like Naruto had said, it only took 10 minutes to get to his home, and they found themselves looking at a 7-bedroom manor house with steps that led up towards it. It had roses going up the sides of the building that only added to its beauty. It has a deck on the front of the house from both the first, second and third floor. The windows showed edges of curtains, though they could not feel anyone else living there. He led the two girls in as he put his backpack down to the side where his shoes were currently resting. The girls did the same as Naruto showed them into a large, spacious and comfortable family room with dark brown wooden floors and white walls with wooded panels going across them at the bottom half of the walls. Along the top were wooden beams, and at the bottom of the center wall was a fireplace with a large 40-inch plasma television. Your home is very beautiful, Rias commented as she marveled at his home. It was very warm and inviting. Is it just you here? Yes, my mother is not home much, so it's mostly just me here. Can I get you anything to drink? He asked, but they both shook their heads. No thank you. We would like to get answers from you if that is okay with you, Rias said as she and Akano took their seats on the black couch. Naruto nodded and took the seat on the couch on the other side of the coffee table. If I tell you what I am and who I am, will you keep this to yourself? My existence has been kept secret since I was born, and only 3 people know that I even exist. Rias and Akano looked at one another, quickly agreed to it. We promise what you say will stay between us as long as it is not harmful or a threat to anyone. Naruto nodded. Well, as you have first guessed, I am not a devil, an angel or a fallen angel. But I am not human either. I am something different altogether, he said as he closed his eyes and focused on his back. When he did, both Akano and Rias looked in wonder as 2 black wings came out of his back with blue marking over them. Only they were not wings belonging to a devil or an angel, but instead were shaped and designed like dragon wings. He then opened his eyes to show his pupils were now reptile-like slits. I, Miss Gremory and Miss Himejima, am a dragon, he said as silence was rained out through the manor house. Both Rias and Akeno looked at Naruto not in fear or in anger but instead in sheer amazement and wonder. Dragons were always known to be giant lizards like the stories in the files had depicted them as, yet here was a dragon that was in the form of a dragon. And they could tell by the tone in his voice that he was being truthful. They both knew that dragons were the most powerful creatures in existence, and even the weakest dragon's powers could match a high-class devil. Heck, the strongest dragons in existence made the Saiyans and God look like ants in comparison. It was unfortunately why a lot of the higher-classed devils in the underworld did not like dragons. They feared their power. "But you are so human-looking," Akeno said as she got up and touched Naruto's wings, which were surprisingly smoother than what she thought they would be like. Rias did the same with the wing on the other side. "That would be because of my mother. She is the only human-looking dragon in existence, and therefore when I was born a human-shaped dragon as well. Though I can turn into my full dragon form if I want, though I rarely do so." "What is your mother name?" "I have heard of a human-shaped dragon in the past and from books, but I forgot the name." "Well, she has a few titles that you might find more familiar. The Infinite Dragon God is one and the Ouroboros Dragon is the other. Though her name simply is Ophis," he said as Rias and Akino's jaws just dropped and stared at Naruto in sheer amazement again. It's not possible. The Infinite Dragon God has a child. A child my age and at my school. This can't be a coincidence. Such a powerful entity would have been picked up, but Ophis has been known to be able to just disappear, so no doubt she can get her own child in the shadows and undetected. Even my brother fears the name, since even in his true form he would not be able to match her. It is just one surprise after another. Akeno thought, trying to get her thoughts together, while Rias went from looking amazed to a look that made her look like she had won the lottery. I cannot let an opportunity pass up like this. The chance at such a powerful ally can't be ignored. I have to get him on my side before someone else like Sona gets to him. She quickly went in front of Naruto and grabbed his hands together into hers and pulled him down back onto the couch as she sat on the coffee table, staring intently into his eyes with hopes in her eyes. "Naruto-kun, tell me, do you know what a peerage is and what the evil pieces system is?" she asked immediately as Akino's eyes widened. She wants him to join. Naruto eyebrows lifted in surprise, but then again he should not have been that surprised at the request, since Tannen did tell him that if a high-class devil who could create a peerage found him, they would try and get him on their side. Well, if I understand it right, the evil piece system was a system that was created to repopulate the devil's numbers since it lost many of its own in the Great War. They are a set of 15 chess pieces given to top-class devils to increase their ranks by reincarnating other beings into devils. The most popular people to use it are heirs and members of the noble families of the underworld, right? Rias nodded enthusiastically. "That's right, I myself have my own peerage, Naruto, though I currently only have 3 members of it so far. Akeno here is a member of my peerage and is my queen. I have another who is a knight, and the final person is a rook." "And you are not just telling me this just for the fun of it, are you?" he said as she shook her head. "No, Naruto, I am telling you this because I want you to join my peerage. I think you would be a great ally to have on my side and also a great friend. A dragon would be a great booster for my peerage, and it would make me feel a lot safer with you around. Dragons are the most powerful creatures in existence for a reason, and yet here you are, the son of the Infinite Dragon God. I don't normally believe in fate, but I feel I was fated to find you." "I don't know about this," Naruto said aloud as he had a thinking look on his face. "I mean, it's a nice offer, but I never really expected myself to join a peerage ever. The only person with a peerage that I have met is Uncle Tannen, though from what I have seen they seem happy with him. Then you should also know that the Gremory family is known through the underworld for being caring and looking after their peerage. Our peerage becomes part of our family and we never turn our back on our family. Please, Naruto," Rias asked, gripping his hand tightly in hers. "Join our family and I promise you will not ever regret it." "A family, huh?" Naruto said, looking down with a soft smile on his face. "My family has only ever consisted of my mom, my dad and my Uncle Tannen. Though I love them greatly, there is no one my age I can talk to, and sometimes that makes things a little difficult. I have never been great at making friends, so I have difficulty making friends." Akino's hand rested on Ria's hands, which were still locked onto his. She was giving him a big smile as his wings finally retracted away. "Please join our family, Naruto-kun. I think you will make life more interesting with you around. And if the need should ever arise, then we will protect you should anyone ever harm you." Underscore that does sound nice. Underscore Naruto thought as he thought it over in his head. Underscore, there is no downside really other than eventually I will be found out, but that was bound to happen eventually anyway. Why not, since when everyone finds out I could have friends stand to stand by me. Underscore. Underscore then again no one would try and kill me due to mom. And if they ever found about Papa Reda Euro, underscore. He chuckled at the thought, which gained a confused look from Rias and Akano, but Naruto waved it off before looking Rias in the eyes. So join your peerage? What piece did you have in mind? He asked, smiling at Rias and Akano as Rias grew the biggest and brightest smile he had ever seen a person wear. Well, she said excitedly as she waved her hand and red glowing chess pieces formed in front of him. Well, maybe you should pick, since I have no idea where to put a dragon. Just remember the queen is already taken, she said. Akano waved cutely at him. Naruto hummed as he looked the pieces over. He thought it over and weighed the pros and cons for each of the evil pieces. Ria already had a knight, a rook and a queen. The queen was recognized as the most powerful underneath the king and would be the last to fight. Underscore the pawn is usually seen as the weakest, and yet in fact it really holds great value. Plus, if someone powerful becomes a pawn, it would give the deception that the others in the peerage are just as powerful. Plus, a pawn would be the first line of defense, and if they are serious about me becoming their friend and want me to become part of their family, then I will do all I can to protect them. Underscore. Making his mind up, he picked up one of the pawn, much to the surprise of Rias and Akano. Are you positive about this pick, Naruto? Rias asked as Naruto nodded and explained his reasons. Thinking it over, Rias and Akano could see where he was coming from and would be a great advantage to them overall. Very well, Naruto-kun. We will begin the process. Since you are not dead, you won't be reincarnated per se, but the process will put devil's blood in you, she said as Naruto nodded. Rias channeled her energy through her body and began to say, speak. I command thee, Naruto Uzumaki, on my name Rias Gremory, become my servant and lead a new life as my pawn. There was a bright flash of light as the Gremory's hand briefly appeared on Naruto's chest before disappearing. A small pawn appeared in front of Naruto, glowing bright. However, just before it could be absorbed into Naruto, it suddenly dimmed in color and fell aimlessly to the ground. The light around them suddenly dimmed and everything suddenly returned to normal. Rias and Akano looked down at the pawn on the ground in surprise as Rias picked it up. I do not understand. I did everything normally like I usually did, she said, but heard a sigh come from Naruto.
I guess that would be because of me, he said, getting odd looks from Rias and Akano. Remember, my mother is the dragon god. Because of that, it stands to reason that I too am a dragon god, since I have her blood running through me. Though I may not be anywhere near her strength, one day I might. And I guess is because of that I cannot become a devil. During his explanation, Rias and Akano had a downcast look on their face. Here I was so close to getting such a great ally to become a member of my peerage, she said, but Naruto grabbed her hand like she had done earlier. I may not be able to be a part of your peerage, but I would still like to be your friend. Though I can't be a loyal servant, I can be your ally. I may not be able to join your peerage, Rias-chan. I swear to you now that because of your kind offer I will swear my utmost loyalty to you. When you face dangers I will stand by your side, and when people attempt to harm you I will protect you from it. That is a promise of a lifetime. So will you take this young dragon to be your friend and ally? He asked, hoping they would still offer their friendship. Rias and Akano had surprised looks on their faces, but both girls quickly smiled and nodded. I think I would like that, Rias said as Akano and Naruto all smiled, a great friendship and more having been born that moment. Light shined through the open curtains at the window as the light hit Naruto's face, causing him to scrunch his eyes up from the sudden intrusion. His eyes flickered a little before slowly they opened up to find him staring up at his bedroom ceiling. His bedroom was pretty big, with a giant queen-sized bed against the left side wall with black drawers and cupboards on the other side storing his clothes. He has a desk as well, though he rarely used it since he preferred to use the office just down the hall. He blinked rapidly before he rubbed his eyes with his right hand, trying to get the sleepers out of his eyes. His mind raced back to the day before and thought about the events that had taken place and what almost came to be. That actually happened. He thought as he then tried to sit up but found his right arm being squeezed by something soft and warm. He then felt a warm breath hit his neck and small humming.
Turning his head to his side, his cheeks went red and eyes went wide when he saw Rias Gremory, his new friend and ally, sleeping beside him, hugging his arm closely into her chest. Though what made him blush was the fact that she was not wearing any clothes. She was very, very naked. "Oh, what do I do?" he mumbled to himself, wondering how he was going to get himself out of this one, but quickly noticed the edges of Rias' mouth quirk upward in a small devious smile. She's awake, which means she planned this. Oh, how sneaky Rias-chan. Well, two can play at that game. He thought before he smirked. Man, what to do? What to do? It's not really fair that Rias-chan is completed naked and I don't want her to get singled out or anything. I guess I'm just going to have to get naked as well and have our hot naked bodies pressed against one another, he said aloud as his hand went towards his pajama bottoms. When they did, he saw Rias' cheeks had now gone red and that her eyes were flicking wildly from underneath her eyelids. There was even steam coming out of her ears, which made him laugh inwardly. Just as his arms were about to move, she shot open in a panic and darted towards his bottoms. However, instead she saw him pulling on the bedsheet, only pretending to pull his bottoms down. He laughed at her disappointed face. Better luck next time, Rias-chan, he said. Rias pouted at him. That was a mean trick, Naruto-kun, says the girl who was sleeping next to me completely naked. I don't sleep with any clothes on. It's get too stuffy during the night and sleeping naked is just more comfortable.
Either way, could you please cover up? Not that I don't think you don't have an amazing body and all, but seeing as we only met yesterday, I don't think it's very appropriate for me to see you so indecent, he said as Rias sighed and nodded.
Fine, let me just find my clothes, she said as she looked around the room and found her clothes in a neat pile beside the bed that she had made the night before. Why were you in my bed anyway, Rias-san? Not that I'm complaining, but I'm pretty sure I gave you one of the other bedrooms for you to stay in. After he had almost become Rias' pawn and became hers and Akino's new friend, he had offered Rias and Akino to stay for dinner since he wanted to get to know them both better. Rias and Akino quickly accepted since they wanted to know all about him and what his life was like with his mother Ophis, as well as his training with Tannen. Though when it came to his training, he tapped his nose and told them they had to wait and see, which only led to him getting adorable pouts from the two girls, but they accepted it for the time being. After dinner, he had offered both them to stay the night since he had 7 bedrooms for them to use. Only Rias had accepted the offer since while Akino had declined, though the raven-haired girl did say she would accept the offer sooner or later. I did, but it got a little cold during the night, so I came in here. And you were just so nice and warm and so cuddly to cuddle next to. Since you're a dragon, you were like a portable heat source, she said as she slipped her underwear on. Could you strap me in? She said as she put her bra on. Naruto reddened a little but nodded. He sat up on his knees and clipped her bra on for her, getting a small thank you from the red-haired girl. No problem, he responded as he got out of bed, allowing Rias to get a good look at Naruto's naked chest, which caused her to drool a little at the sight of his muscles, arms, chest and abs. Look at those abs. It's like they're chiseled from stone. He might not be part of my peerage, but at least no one else like Sona can have him either. Plus he was my friend first. She thought evilly and cackled a little, which made Naruto look at her oddly. After Naruto quickly showered, he used a spell his mother had taught him when he was younger, which made clothes form on his body. After a few seconds, his toweled form was now covered and was now in his school uniform. He did offer Rias to shower, but she said she would do so when they got to school, saying she could get washed and cleaned up at the occult research building that she had explained to him about the night before. After both were changed, Naruto happily made his guest and new friend pancakes for breakfast, which Rias eagerly ate. Her eyes shined like stars as she ate them, quickly recognizing him as a great cook as Naruto thanked her for the praise. She even said now that she knew he was a great cook, she would be eating round his almost every day. She thought he would get nervous and say no, but instead he smiled happily at her, told her she was welcome over whenever she liked and that it was nice to have company over. Once they finished breakfast, they left Naruto's home and made their way to school together. As they walked together halfway through the trip, Rias slipped her left arm through Naruto's right arm and linked them together. Naruto raised his eyebrow at that, but he did not comment on it. Rias wondered in her head why she did that, but she thought nothing else on it. As they walked, many adults noticed the handsome boy and beautiful girl walking together and all smiled at the two, thinking they made such a wonderful couple. Naruto's cheeks reddened a little at all the attention and staring and knew it would probably be no better if not worse once they got to the school, but Rias just ignored it and smiled as she listened to the whispered and mutterings of the adults. They walking in a comfortable silence as Rias continued to keep her arm linked with his, and before they knew it, they found themselves at Kuo Academy. Just like when Naruto thought the moment the school saw him linked arms with Rias, who he learnt they had called one of their great ladies, the other being Akano, whispered, muttering in outbursts what all he heard. No, Rias-san already got him. Damn, Uzumaki works fast. How did he do it? I have been trying to get Rias for months. No, my Naruto-kun has been taken from me. Ah geez. Naruto muttered as he palmed his face as Rias laughed at his expression. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, you will get used to it. Now that you're my friend, you will be spending a lot of time with me, so you kind of have to get used to it or they will eat you alive. She said, though the expression shown on his face showed he was not exactly happy about all the added attention, but he would bear with it. From one of the class windows on the third floor, a pair of violet eyes looked down at them. She was a young woman around the same age as Rias, with black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes which had a pair of glasses in front of them. She looked at Naruto and Rias and sighed in disappointment. Darn, Rias-san got to him first. Rias always get the good ones, she said before disappearing from the window. Back with Naruto and Rias, the two entered their classroom and took their normal seats. Akano had waved hello to them both and quickly struck up a conversation with Rias as the two girls whispered to each other quietly. No doubt she wanted to find out if anything happened when she left. So a Euro, Akano whispered to Rias. Did you sleep next to him? She asked as Rias gave her a coy smile, giving Akano her answer. And did anything happen? Nothing happened, though I can tell you one thing. That uniform does not do that body of his justice, she said to her best friend, and laughed as the ogled and dreamy expression Akano was now wearing on her face as she looked over towards the raven-haired boy. Naruto looked over only to see Rias and Akano laugh into their hands when they saw him staring. He just shook his head. Uncle Tannen was right. Girls are so weird. Later on, so we are now headed to the base of the Occult Research Club? Naruto asked as Akano led the way a little in front of him. She nodded her head at his question. Yes, like Bucko said. The club is just a front so that she can research and gather intel on the creatures and other factions of the area so that she can report it back to the underworld. Though you might not be a member of Rias peerage, you can still join since you are supernatural and not human. So this town is essentially her territory in a way then? That's right, though she shares the territory with another high-class devil from a noble family here who is in our year, she said, surprising Naruto. There is another high-class devil here? Who are they? Ah, don't worry. I'm sure Bucko will introduce you to her eventually. Though they are friends, they are also rivals in a way, so things tend to get a little competitive when they are around one another. That may have been another reason Bucko desperately wanted you in her peerage. So the other devil here did not get you first. Guess that makes sense in a way, he said, though it did sound like Rias only wanted him so this other devil couldn't. Though just a shame she won't be able to have me either. Plus I have already sworn my loyalty to Rias-chan. Very true. Though Bucko was a little disappointed that you could not join her peerage. I know she is happy to have someone like you on her side, she said, making him feel a little better. Ah, here we are, she said as she and Naruto stopped at an old building with a clock at the top of it. It looked at pretty good condition, but could tell by the way it was slightly worn down on some of the wooden panels that it was older than the other buildings at Kuo Academy. It also had vines and other shrubbery growing on some of its sides and had a few of its windows blackened out. Come, it's time for you to meet the rest of the gang, Akano said as she opened the door and led him inside. Bucko should already be here, so you will see her shortly. She led him through a hallway that was very different from the outside. It was very fancy and elegant looking, with tablecloths covering the stands and had old candles on top that were currently lit. The smell from the candles made him wrinkle his nose. Here we are. Welcome to the Occult Research Club, Naruto-kun, Akano said as she used both arms to open the double doors and motioned for him to walk inside. Wow, was the first thing that came out of his mouth when he saw the room. Like the hallway, it was very elegant looking, with hardwood dark brown floor with dark cream-colored walls on all four sides. There were paintings hanging on each wall and had glass cabinets and wooden stands that held more candles on them. In the center of the room was a large mat that had a coffee table in the center of it with two Victorian-styled couches on either side. On the far side of the wall there was an opening in the wall but was covered by cream-colored curtains. The room was lit up only by all the candles, giving it a very dark appearance, but felt warm, cozy and inviting. Looking across the room he saw two other people already waiting for them. The first was a boy who was leaning against one of the walls, and Naruto recognized that he was in the year below him. That and because the girls in the school had fawned over him greatly. He was a handsome young man with short blonde hair and gray eyes and had a very princely look about him. He then looked to the other person who was sitting down on the couch and was drinking a small cup of tea. She was a petite girl around 15 years of age with white hair and hazel eyes. At the front, her hair has 2 long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back has a short bob cut. She also wore a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair. Naruto-kun, I would like to introduce you to Kiba Yuto and Kaneko Tiju. Kaneko-chan, Kiba-kun, this is Naruto Uzumaki, our newest member of the Occult Research Club, Akeno said as she introduced him.
The first to welcome him was Kiba. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-san. Welcome to Rias Peerage. I hope we can be good friends. Kiba said as he shook Naruto's hand, all the while having a happy but charming smile on his face.
Thank you. Naruto said. This guy seems pretty cool. Welcome, Naruto-san. Kaneko said quietly and a little coldly before going back to her tea. Naruto looked toward Kiba, who just laughed a little. Don't worry. Kaneko-san is usually like that. She will warm up to you eventually. Oh, okay. Well, it's an honor to meet you both. I hope we can be good friends. Naruto said, bowing to the duo. Though you should know that I am not actually part of Rias Peerage. The sentence caught them a little off guard. No doubt they did not expect to hear that. Oh, but you were supernatural though? Kiba asked as Naruto nodded. I am, and I'm sure Rias will explain the circumstances why I am not part of her peerage. However, I can still join the occult club though, he said as Kiba and Kaneko nodded their heads, accepting the answer. Making good impressions already, Naruto-kun, Rias called out as she walked out from the other room and through the curtain. She walked through the room and sat down at one of the couches and crossed her legs while crossing her arms as well. Akeno moved as well and stood just behind the couch and beside Rias. Since we are all here, I can formally welcome Naruto to the Occult Research Club. Welcome, Naruto. I am sure you will be a great member to the club, she said as the others members politely clapped. Now you already know the history behind the 3 factions, right? She asked as Naruto nodded his head as Kaneko and Kiba looked at him in slight surprise, probably thinking he was a human before being a member of the peerage. Good, then I won't need to go over the basics or the history then, since you already know it. In that case I can move on to the next part of the induction. Since you are a new member, you should know devils need humans to sign contracts with them, which increases their power and standing in the underworld. However, in order to get the human to sign the contract, the devil must first fulfill their end of the bargain. These tasks can border on the form simple things such as washing clothes and playing video games with them, to the complete insane and weird to having to cosplay for someone or even cross-dressing. Though you won't need to worry about that, of course. Wow, that's a little weird, he said as Kaneko and Kiba nodded in agreement. Yes, but it has to be done, otherwise it would be bad business if we turn down and refuse a request, which could lead to us losing more contractor due to word of mouth. However, since you unfortunately are not part of my peerage, you won't be able to fulfill any contracts. But the Occult Research Club is set up to help monitor the activities in the area. I would greatly appreciate it if you could keep me informed of any movements of fallen angels, or other devils. Also, while my peerage and I complete contracts, would you allow me to mark the Gremory family symbol on your wrist so that my family's allies will recognize you as an ally and friend? She asked as Naruto nodded. Rias stood up and placed her hand on Naruto's wrists and muttered a few words. She took her hand off, and on his skin was now the symbol of the Gremory family in red. You know, if that is the case, may I do something similar with you? He asked, getting a raised eyebrow from Rias. It is just in case my mother or any of my previous acquaintances meets you and think you are an unfriendly. Plus, if you channel your Yuki into it, it will alert me and let me know you need help, he said. Rias thought it over for a few seconds before she nodded. That would be acceptable. Thank you, she said, smiling and pulling up her sleeve. Naruto then placed his hand on her wrist and did the same thing. After a few seconds he took his hand off and a small tattoo of a dragon with its tail in a spiral form lay on her wrist. Rias looked it over before smiling happily at it. Cool, Naruto said, looking over her wrist before he felt a tingle in his nose that signaled he was about to sneeze. Uh-oh. They all looked at him. Uh-oh? Is something wrong, Naruto-kun? Akeno asked as she watched as his eyes were scanning all around them. Where's the window? he asked in a panic and saw Kaneko point to a window behind some curtains. He quickly threw the curtains over and opened the window. When he did, his eyes closed and he sneezed. ACCHHOOOO. When he sneezed, everyone was thrown back a little when a giant torrent of azure fire shot out of his nose and mouth, lighting up the room completely as the big torrent of fire shot towards the sky. Good thing I got to the window in time. He thought before turning around to see everyone looked gobsmacked. Sorry about that. When I sneeze I can't really control my fire abilities, he said as they gaped at him before Akeno began laughing into her hand and Rias had a smirk and amused look on her face. That's okay Naruto-kun, though now I know one of your abilities. Fire element, huh? I knew having you become my ally would be a great thing. Your fire powers are going to be a great advantage to us, she said as Naruto chuckled. Well, just know I won't be telling you all of them just yet. I will leave them as a surprise. Well, I am sure I will be wonderfully surprised when I do see them, she said before motioning for Naruto to follow her. The two sat down on the couches again as Rias clicked her fingers and a chessboard formed on the table in front of them. Now Naruto-kun, tell me, have you ever played chess before? She asked, smirking a little as Naruto raised his eyebrow at the question. That evening Naruto walked home as he contemplated the day he just had. The chess match he had with Rias had lasted almost 3 hours. The two just kept trading move after move and it just was not going anywhere. Sometimes they would spend around 15 minutes on a signal move. Rias, who apparently was a great fan and a great player of the game, was surprised to see someone was actually managing to go toe-to-toe with her in a game of chess, since Akeno usually gave her the best. Throughout the evening, aside from Kiba wanting to know all about dragons since Rias had told the others about what Naruto really was and having Kaneko say he was pretty cool, he had been called on 2 other contracts. Though thankfully she had kept his parentage a secret since it was not time to let the rest of the world know about Ophis having a child. So far he thought Rias' peerage was pretty cool and that he could see him becoming fast friend with the other members. Akeno had expressed great interest in getting to know him more and had been sitting beside him the entire time as he played against Rias. However, as he walked home, a flapping of wings caught his attention and made him stop in his tracks. The flapping sounds were too big to be a bird and they sounded close. There was no one around since the streets were pretty empty. It was then that his senses went haywire and jumped back a few meters. When he looked back in the spot he was standing in, a spear made of blue light was sticking out of the ground. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto disappeared in a great burst of speed before he appeared on top of one of the neighboring buildings. My, you are all alone, little devil. A male voice said as Naruto looked up in the sky. He saw a middle-aged looking gentleman with short black hair and dark blue eyes. His outfit consisted of a pale violet trench coat over a white dress shirt with a matching ascot, black pants and shoes, and a black fedora. On his back, though, were 2 black wings that looked like crow's wings. Here I thought I would have a quiet journey home, Naruto said aloud as the fallen angel snickered down at him. May I know the name of the person whose ass I am about to kick? Not that it matters, but I am Donasek, fallen angel and your destroyer, he said arrogantly. Well, this guy is certain cocky. He thought. I thought the 3 factions were keeping away from one another, he said, making the fallen angel laugh as a blue light spear appeared in his hand and thrummed with energy. Oh, there is, but I was passing by and I could smell a devil nearby. I just could not resist the chance to take out a little powerless devil, he declared as the light spear in his right hand lit up. He cocked his hand back and threw it straight towards Naruto. Instead of jumping out the way, Naruto shook his head and swept a hand through his hair. Annoying, he said before his hair overshadowed his eyes. Just as the light spear was about to strike Naruto through the chest, it suddenly halted in the air as Naruto caught it just as the tip was about to hit him. He tightened his grip on the light spear until it shattered into hundreds of pieces and faded away. In the air, Donasek gaped in fear at what he just saw. No devil can destroy a light spear like that. It's made of light-based energy and therefore a devil should be weak against it. Donasek then felt a strong flood of killing intent hit him as it made his entire body shiver in fear. He looked down at Naruto to see Naruto's eyes were now glowing blue and his pupils were slitted. What are you? He shouted as Naruto disappeared from his spot and reappeared in front of the fallen angel with his dragon wings expanded out. Donasek had a look of fear appear in his face and swung his right hand toward him, not knowing what else to do. But Naruto easily caught it. You seem to favor your right arm. Let's change that, shall we? he said in a monotone voice as his other hand suddenly swung down on Donasek's right arms and severed the arm of his body. Blood spurt onto Naruto's clothes, making him groan since it was going to be a pain to get out. Donasek screamed in pain, and as he held the stump that was once his right arm, he then looked towards Naruto, who now had his right fist cocked back with what looked azure flames flickering from it. By the way, I am no devil. Hiken. He thrusted his right hand forward. An enormous stream of blue fire easily the size of a 3-story house shot out and towards the fallen angel. Donasek stood no chance as he was engulfed in the blue fire. It was so quick that not even a scream was heard. The sky lit up from the blue fire and made some smoke float around in the air. After a minute the clapped his hand and made the blue fire completely disappear. Donasek was completely obliterated, showing nothing was left. No bones, no ash, no nothing. Just completely wiped of the face of the earth as if he was never there to begin with. Naruto looked at where the fallen angel was previously standing and sighed a little as he dropped back to the ground and put his wings away. His eyes went back to normal as well, and he picked up his backpack from the pavement. He was about to keep walking but noticed he was still holding Donasek's arm. "Ew," he said as he threw it on the ground and clicked his fingers as the arm engulfed in flames. He cracked his shoulders before he went back on his way home. Naruto's manor home. Naruto arrived home minutes later and quickly kicked his shoes off and throwing his backpack onto one of the couches since he had homework to do. As he headed towards the kitchen to get a drink, he took his shirt off and carried the blood-ridden shirt in his hands since it was in desperate need of a wash and he needed the blood gone. His kitchen was very beautiful looking with white marble floors with a built-in tabletop counter in the center of it with a dark marble top and cupboard and drawers built into it as well as a sink. The other kitchen equipment and necessities were on either side of the counter and left lots of room for people to travel through. The walls were similar to the family room with white walls and dark brown wooden panels. When he arrived in his kitchen, he expected to find it completely empty like he normally did, but instead he found Akeno sitting on the tabletop counter with her legs crossed and reading a magazine. "Hey Akeno-chan. How did you get in my house?" "The back door," she said, making Naruto face palm, but he heard her gasp a little at the blood-ridden shirt in his hands. She jumped off the tabletop counter and ushered towards him. "What happened?" she asked as she looked for any injuries on him, though she tried to keep the ogling to herself. Now I know what Rias meant by him having abs carved out of stone. Fallen angel paid me a visit on my way home, he said as Akeno had a panic look on her face. "Don't worry, he won't be a problem ever again." "You killed him?" she asked in surprise as he nodded his head. "Then is that his blood?" "I may have ripped his arm off before disintegrating him with a tower of fire," he said as he clicked his fingers as a small blue flame appeared on his thumbs. Akeno would have done a spit take at hearing that he beat a fallen angel so effortlessly, but Akeno was staring at the blue flame thinking it was very pretty, and having never seen blue fire before she could not help but marvel at it.
"However Akeno-chan, I need to wash this and then go shower off. I got blood splattered up my arm," he said as he threw his shirt into the washing machine.
Snapping out of her daze, Akeno got a lusty look appear on her face. If you like I can wash your back for your Naruto-kun," she said, whispering it haughtily into his ear, making a shiver go up his spine. She laughed at his face before she grabbed his hand and dragged him off out of the kitchen and towards the bathroom. That's it for today guys, thanks for watching.